Deploying your game to multiple stores can be challenging, especially when you're dealing with multiple export configurations. This is where W4Build comes super useful. In this video, we're going to see how you can export all of your game configurations to multiple stores. Let's first understand what we are building today. We're going to build an entire CI pipeline from start to finish, where we are going to import our projects, then build the matrix configurations, and then we're going to configure two deployments, one for Steam and another one for each IO. Let's start by importing our project. For this, we go to the page Projects. Decide where your project is located, GitHub, GitLab, or any other Git provider. In this case, we're going to use GitHub. So we click Connect. A new pop-up window will appear. You select your account and then click only select repositories. This way, W4Build only has access to the desired repositories. The project that we're going to use is Godot test project. It's a private project that I have in my repository. So I click the repository and then install and authorize. W4Build will handle everything for you. It will import your project and now has total access to it. It can clone it. The only permission that W4Build doesn't have is write. So W4Build will not be able to delete your repository. We are just only going to read it to build it. The next step is to configure how W4Build should build our project. So for this, we're going to use matrices. A matrix is a group of builds. So in order to create a matrix for your game, you click into the imported project, click the wand button to add a matrix. And here you need to confirm if this repository is Godot or a game. So we are going to click game. This also adds the default values like the Git repository URL and the default branch. W4Build will redirect you into the homepage of the matrix where we are going to configure the shared configuration across all builds, like the Godot version. To do this, we click the cog button and we're going to select the official stapled version of Godot and then the 441 stable. Additionally, we're going to add a generic file name, so all the files created by this build will inherit this name. So Godot test. That's it. All the configurations will have these properties. Now we need to configure every build for the matrix. When you're configuring your export presets in Godot, every single export preset there is a build in W4Build. So that means if you are exporting Godot for macOS, then it's a build in your matrix. You click Add Job. And here you type the export preset name. So we are going to add first the macOS. Now you see that it inherited the file name from the common configuration. You can also change that, but for now we're going to leave it there. If you are deploying to Steam, in here is where you type the Steam depot ID. So we are going to do that. You type in your Steam depot ID for macOS. Then we're going to add a new job for Linux. Since we want to export for Linux, maybe if our players use the Steam Deck. So we type the export preset name for Linux and then the depot ID in my Steamworks app. You copy the Steamworks depot, copy and paste it, and then save. Finally, for this game, we're going to add the Windows desktop preset. So add a new job. We type in the preset name for Windows, and then finally the depot ID for the Windows preset. If you are not dealing with Steam, you don't have to add the depot ID. But if you are deploying to Steam, please configure your depot ID in this place. If not, it's going to fail. So you click Save. What this will do with the Steam depot is that when the file is created, it will add some metadata to the file that it relates this file to this depot ID when we are deploying for Steam. And that is all. Our configuration for Matrix is completed. Our project is ready to be built. The next step is to start configuring the deployment targets. Let's start by visiting the targets page and adding a new deployment target. We're going to start creating the each.io deployments. Each.io deployment. This is just a short description. It will help you identify which target are you using, and then you click save. In here, you start configuring. For now, I'm going to use an empty itch.io project where we are going to publish every build. So you go and configure. You need to type the API key that you get from itch.io. After that, you are going to type in the deployment channel. How it works is that itch.io will give you like a defined path. So you have to put your username, the project name, and then, for example, the export preset name. W4Build will give you templatizing variables where you can dynamically create configurations when making a deployment. This project is Godot test project. So we can copy this template for now and just replace values, the username, the project name, and then I'm going to leave it as the export name. That way, every build will get the export name from the file that is being published. Click Save. And then we're going to add some deployment rules. And this means that this deployment should only be triggered if these rules are valid. So for now, we're going to click field and matrix equals to Godot test project. So I only want that this deployment deploys files that are created from the matrix that I just created. And then you click add. Now we're going to enable this deployment. This means wait for all builds to complete. This means that if you trigger a matrix build, this will wait for all the files that will be created from all the builds will be zipped together and be deployed. But in this case, we are just making every time that a build completes from the Godot test project matrix gets deployed. This is useful for when we are going to build, for example, if you are planning to deploy your export templates from Godot and you want them all to be together in a single zip file. So in this case, you will click the enable. Or also if you're deploying to Steam, because you want that all the files be deployed at the same time. And that's pretty much it. That's the itch.io configuration for this project. We're almost done. We are missing the deployment target for Steam. So let's create that. So you click new deployment, select Steam, and you give a short description, Godot test in Steam. This is just a simple way to recognize which deployment you are using. So you click save. Now we are going to wait for all the builds to be completed because Steam needs to receive a zip file with all the content that you want to deploy for different paths. I highly recommend that you go and read Steam documentation because it has some specific needs for branch names, path names, etc. So let's start by configuring the deployment rules. So first, select the matrix equal to and Godot. This again will tell that this deployment only will deploy files created by the Godot test project matrix. So we click add. Now we need to configure the Steam configuration. So you click configure. It opens a form. In here you can get some of the Steam documentation. But for now, we need the app ID, which you should have by now. The username. The username is the Steamworks username. And then the password, again, the Steamworks password. And then the Steam guard code. If it's the first time that you are deploying, leave it like that. How does this work is that when you try to deploy to Steam, Steam will send you a Steam guard code, and that is the code that you will need to paste here. You will not need to replace every time the guard code, just once. When you get it to your email, copy and paste it here, and then W4Build will already be authenticated and allowed to deploy your game into Steam. It's a little bit difficult, but W4Build is not compatible with the Steam Guard application, like the mobile application. Those Steam Guard codes will expire in less than 30 seconds, so those will not work. Only the ones that arrive to your email. And this is the Steam deployment branch. For now, if it's your first deployment, leave it default. This will create an initial build in Steam, and then you need to change which branch you are deploying into. You cannot deploy all your builds to the default branch. You only move your builds into the default branch when in the Steamworks application webpage. For now, we are going to use preview. Click preview. This will run a deployment and will check all variables and see if those are correct. When you're ready to deploy, you uncheck this preview and deployments will push the files to Steam. And then you click save. And then you need to enable this deployment after all the configuration is done. And that's all. You have configured a full CI pipeline from bringing your project from GitHub, creating your matrix, and creating 2 deployments into itch.io and Steam for multiple platforms, which are Linux, Windows, and Mac. Now, let's start building our game. In this setup, I need W4Build and Godot side by side because we are going to start editing our game and start pushing changes to GitHub. So I want them to be built in W4Build. So let's do that. Let's go first to our terminal or your Git manager, and we're going to create a new branch. Git checkout, a new branch, W4Build demo. We move our terminal. So in here we have our game. Let's make some changes and we move some of our assets. We click save. We go back into our terminal and we ask Git, what's the status? There is a new change because we edited the main scene. Git add main scene, Git commit, and we add some commit message. And then we push it. Now, since it's a new build, W4Build is not aware of all the changes until a PR is created. So we go ahead and copy the new PR changes. You can see that we haven't triggered any build. We go and visit, and we create the pull request. By now, GitHub should already communicate with W4Build, and 3 new builds have been created for macOS, Linux, and Windows Desktop because we configure the matrix to trigger all these 3 builds, one for Windows, one for Linux, and one for macOS. We even receive more details. For example, this one is triggering from the branch W4Build demo, but the git sha, well, that string, you can see that the git sha value is also here. So git log, it's here, 9618. We will need to wait a little bit for these builds to be triggered. Our builds are almost done. One of them is already saving a new artifact, which is related to the macOS. So we are going to see now that after it saves a file, it should trigger a deployment build. So if we go to deployments page, a new event has been queued because the macOS has completed and then it's going to start deploying the macOS into Steam. Now that all of the three are already completed, the Steam also has been triggered. 3 each IO because we are deploying separately, and Steam wait for all of them to be completed to be triggered. We will have to wait a little bit for these builds to complete, but these are normally quite fast. Now, also the Steam deployment was successfully executed, but it was running on preview. So it didn't push any file. We just needed to see if it was okay. So let's go to Steam and deploy to Steam. It will give you some details and if it will successfully push the changes. So let's go back to the targets page, go back into Steam, and then configure, and then uncheck the preview configuration. That way we are ready to deploy. Now, we need to go back to our Git repository page. View pull request. And now let's merge the changes. If we go back to the W4 build, we should have received a new build because when you merge a PR, GitHub will send a notification to W4 build, new changes are happening, right? And in this case, if we visit, it will be building your game from the main branch because the PR was merged into the main branch. We will have to wait a little bit for these builds to complete it for our deployments to be triggered. After triggering the deployment again, the Steam deployment should fail because it's going to ask you for the Steam guard. This will trigger that Steam will send you a guard code into your email. So get that code, go back to the targets and click Steam, configure, and enter the guard code that you receive through your email and click save. You can go to the deployments events and visit the last ones and click restart build. After this, all the deployments for Steam will use the Steam guard code that you have received through your email, and you should not need to enter a new code every build. This will last at least for a few months. Eventually, guard codes will expire and you will have to enter a new guard code into the Steam configuration, but it's not very frequent that you have to do so. And that is everything. You just have configured a complete CI pipeline from start to finish, including deployments to itch.io and Steam for your game for multiple platforms. We are looking forward to see what you're building with W4 Build.